Hello, boys and girls, and welcome back to another episode of Deep and Effective Big Book Study. I am a recovered alcoholic, and I believe this is going to be episode 3 today, guys. And what are we going to be talking about in this video? What are we highlighting today? Well, today's going to be talking about two main things. Number one, we're going to be going over the 4 boundaries of sponsorship. If you've never heard of this, I suggest you stick around and listen. We're gonna talk about some cool stuff with that. As always, comes directly out of our book. And another thing that we're going to discuss is the links. We always hear about, are we willing to go to any links, right? But do I really know what that means, what that looks like? And more importantly, do I know where these links are, right? And as always, we're going to allow the big book to be our voice. I think it was last episode I introduced that we were going to start opening up with the set-aside prayer. So we can invite God into this, and He can give me, I can ask Him to be, I can become a channel for His voice. So take a little quick moment of silence here, guys, and we're going to open with the set-aside prayer and get this thing started off on the right foot. Here we go. God, please help me set aside everything I think I know about myself, my disease, the 12 steps, and especially you, so that I may have an open mind and a new experience with all these things. All right, so we got the set-aside prayer out of the way. We welcome God into this. Guys, if you're new to the channel, I really appreciate you being here. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. And I'm going to be dropping my email in here, which is recoveredalcoholic1939 at gmail.com. And I'm also, one of the things that will be happening on every episode throughout the channel will be, I'll always be offering sponsorship to men and women. Guys, if you're needing Big Book sponsorship, please reach out to me. Ladies, if you're looking for Big Book sponsorship, reach out to me. I can get you in touch with some other ladies who are very strong in the program. Another thing that I want to bring to you guys is, I've said before and I'll say it again, that I only really attach myself to solid recovery meetings, where that means that there's going to be a big book based meeting, and it's all about step studies. So I'm going to be dropping in two meetings that I attend. One is an all men's step study. It happens every Thursday at 6 p.m. Central. And another one is men and women. It's another big book study. It's at Sundays at 6 p.m. and I'll be dropping in the Zoom links, Zoom codes, and passwords for you guys. We'd love to see you. So, as always, this is the title of the show is Deep and Effective Big Book Study, right? Well, where do we get this title from? I'm going to read from page 20-25. In case you don't know, this is the great fact. It's just this and nothing less, that we have had deep and effective spiritual experiences, which have revolutionized our whole attitude toward life, toward our fellows, and toward God's universe. The central fact of our lives today is the absolute certainty that the Creator has entered into our hearts and lives in a way which is indeed miraculous. He has commenced to accomplish those things for us which we could never do by ourselves. Wow, what an amazing promise that is. And I can tell you from my own experience, not just because I read it, but from my own experience, this is 100% true. Okay, guys, as always, I got some notes here so I can try to stay on track and not get too space-brained here. So, like I said, this episode, we're going to talk about the 4 boundaries of sponsorship. And as always, we're going to allow the big book to be our voice. I'm going to come directly out of the book. I'm not going to ad-lib or make anything up, and I'm not going to use any outside influences to speak on behalf of me today. I'm going to use my experience, and I'm going to use the instructions in our book. So one of the things that we have to understand is that the sponsor-sponsee relationship is about a union. It's about creating a relationship where we have two equals, right? It's all about accountability. This idea that I'm just going to come up to you and ask you to be my sponsor at the end of the meeting, and then you're officially my sponsor, and we go from there. That's not how we're supposed to be doing it. And I want to talk about this today. And another thing about the boundaries, it's about holding both parties accountable. How many times have we sat in meetings and listened to people talk about, I can't get a hold of my sponsor. I've been calling them for days, or Or every time I try to meet with my sponsor, he cancels on me, and so on. We have all these excuses that we hear about the sponsor not being accountable. And the thing is, the beautiful thing about the boundaries is that what it does is it's going to hold both parties accountable. And the book is very clear on this. So if someone, I'll tell you how it would work in my life. So if somebody comes up to me and asks me to be their sponsor, asks me to take them through this work, I'm going to say, absolutely, brother, absolutely, sister. I've actually taken many women through this work. So we're going to go sit down and we're going to go have a talk. And we're going to spend some time getting to know each other. And this comes from page 90 in chapter 7, Working with Others. They give us instructions on how to approach the new man, the new woman. And I'm going to spend some time asking this individual a whole bunch of questions. And we're going to go over this in a minute when we get to page 90. And I'm going to give this person to have an opportunity to ask me anything they needed. And this is kind of like an interview process is what it's all about. And in this interview process, I'm going to be helping to qualify the new man, the new woman to even be here, right? And then once we decide that we are both willing to move forward into this relationship, then we need to set some ground rules. And these ground rules are going to come from the book, right? As always, we're going to let the big book be our voice. So let's go to page 58. And it's going to go over the first boundary of sponsorship. And we read it in just about every meeting, right? It's a very traditional thing to read a portion of How It Works, chapter 5, in the opening of just about any meeting, right? We're all familiar with it. But do I really understand what it is I'm reading? There's so much information in this chapter, and even just the small portion that we read in the meeting is that I think it gets a little glossed over, if you will, right? Usually most people are finishing up their cigarette in the parking lot or finishing getting their coffee. They're still out BSing and, with their buddies, or they're still in the bathroom, right? But some of the most valuable, pertinent information comes through in the first few pages of How It Works. And I'm going to read the first paragraph of How It Works. And again, let's look at the name of the chapter. It's HOW. It tells me exactly how this thing works. It's going to be through a level of honesty, open mind, and willingness. And it's by no coincidence that H comes first in this chapter, right? So I'm going to read this first paragraph, and we're gonna dissect it some, and we're going to establish some ground rules out of this first paragraph. So, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. There are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. So, the key word that we want to talk about in this chapter is also the first boundary of sponsorship. It's actually the first boundary of recovery, is the word honesty. We see the word honest and honesty 3 times in this paragraph. And in one case, we have the word rigorous attached to it. And if you don't know what rigorous means, a short definition means unwavering. Okay? So why am I talking about this? Why are we breaking down this paragraph, right? So one of the things that we have to understand is that the sponsor-sponsee relationship is a union. It's a relationship, right? It's going to be about 2 willing participants coming together for a common problem and a common solution. This is some of the ground rules we need to establish. And the only way that a sponsor and a sponsee can be successful in their relationship is if it's based on honesty. So when I'm sitting down with the new man and woman and I tell them that in order for us to have a successful relationship, that you are going to have to be honest with me. I cannot be of service to you if you're not honest. You also will not recover if you can't be honest. Now that goes the same way back on the sponsor. The sponsor has to be willing to be 100% honest with the sponsee, which means that in this union, in this relationship, that we're going to give each other spiritual permission to be honest with each other, right? Because we will be completely ineffective if honesty isn't the number one thing that's going on within the recovery process. Because what it does is it holds both parties accountable. Another little side note outside of the boundary, to sum up any myth or misconception about any reason why someone slips or relapses or, goes back out drinking, there's not some big psychological process here to try to figure out. The reality of it is, it's so simple, is that the only thing that will ever cause me to drink again as the real alcoholic is if that I'm unwilling to adopt a lifestyle of rigorous honesty, right? This is the only thing that will ever cause me to drink again, because the only thing that stands between me and a drink is God. If I take God out of the equation, I don't stand a chance. And how I take God out of the equation is I stop being honest. I stop being open-minded, and I stop being willing. I am doomed to fail if I have those things happen in my life. So one of the things again, to recap, the first boundary of sponsorship is honesty. I'm going to give you spiritual permission to be honest with me, and you're going to give me spiritual permission to be honest with you. Which means that I'm probably going to tell you some things about yourself that you're not going to want to hear. But it's only through this that we stand a chance to recover. So if you get a chance, mark in your book, first paragraph on page 58 is the first boundary of sponsorship. And I will say this over and over, keep repeating, is it's holding both parties accountable. Now, let's go to page 90, guys. We're going to go to boundary number 2, and we're going to look at some very pertinent information. So when we go to page 90, top of 90, I'm just going to read here, and then I'm going to break some stuff down. And again, remember, I've said this before in previous episodes, and I'll probably continue to say it till I'm done with the channel, is that the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, at its most simplest form, is nothing more than an instruction manual. Right? An instruction manual to do what? Well, to do one very specific thing, and that's to recover from the disease of alcoholism, right? We have clear-cut, precise instructions for every single step. Well, page 90 takes us into chapter 7, working with others, not for others, and not on others, right? And one of the misconceptions that we hear is that the sponsor is supposed to be micromanaging their sponsees' lives and making decisions for them, and tell them, oh, you've got to call me and run every idea you have about life to me, and that's just absolute nonsense, right? Look at the chapter, working with others, which means we're going to enter into this union, into this relationship, this agreement where we're two equal parts. Right? So many times do we hear that the sponsor, because he's got some time, that he is somehow becomes elevated above the newcomer. Right? He is somehow more superior to the newcomer because of his time, and that's, again, absolute nonsense. When I started to understand that the new man, the new woman is my equal, and I will treat him as such, and forget about my time. Right? My time is irrelevant. Time is one of the biggest liabilities that we have in Alcoholics Anonymous today. So the name of the chapter is working with, not on or not for, which means I'm not here to fix you, and I'm not here to run your life. I don't have time for it, and I promise you, you do not want me running your life for you. It will probably not end up very well. So let's get back to page 90. Top of 90. Boundary number 2, guys. When you discover a prospect for Alcoholics Anonymous, find out all you can about him. So this is what I was saying earlier about when we're going to have like an interview process. We're going to go sit down and spend some time together. You're going to tell me your story. I'm going to tell you my story. And within this, I'm going to tell you exactly what Alcoholics Anonymous is here to do. And I'm also going to tell you exactly what Alcoholics Anonymous is not here to do. This is one of the most important things that we have to understand, is that I need to be representing the program properly. And in order to do that, I have to tell you what we don't do here, right? There's so many things that Alcoholics Anonymous is not here for. And this is another one of the breakdowns that we have in our society today. This idea that you can just come into AA and bring any problem under the sun in here, and we're going to fix you. And that's not what we're here to do. Again, it's always about the singleness of purpose and our primary purpose, right? So when you discover that prospect, sit down with him and find out all you can about him. And here's the boundary in itself. If he does not want to stop drinking, don't waste time trying to persuade him. So how on earth could I possibly know if an individual doesn't want to stop drinking? Well, I can't unless I ask him. And this is what the instructions are telling me to do. I'm supposed to be taking the time to get to know this man. Why are you here? What can we do for you? Do you even want to be here? Because if you don't, I can't help you, and I'm going to move on down the road and grab the next guy or the next gal that comes in, right? So this is the boundary. Don't waste your time trying to persuade him. And again, it goes back to the sponsor as well. You find somebody in the rooms that you think you want to be your sponsor, and you can't get them to put the effort into the relationship, then they're a waste of your time, right? I'm going to read a little side note here when we get down to, once we establish the second boundary and I spend some time getting to know you. Right? Go down the middle, towards the middle of the page, a little more than middle, I'm sorry. In the paragraph, it says, if he says yes, right? Remember, if this is where we're going to set up this deal, set up the arrangement, the accountability. If he says yes, then his attention should be drawn to you as a person who has recovered. See, I'm supposed to be introducing myself to the new man, to the new woman, as a recovered alcoholic, right? This idea that recovering and recovered, the book is crystal clear on this, right? I got to tell you that it's nonsense to think that you're going to work these steps and still be recovering, because you're not. There's no hope in always being sick. So it says, I will introduce myself as a recovered alcoholic, right? And this is another little key point. You should be described to him as one of a fellowship who is part of our own recovery. Try to help others who will be glad to help him if he sees the care of you. So another part of this boundary is, remember I told you that I have to tell you what I'm here to do, but I'm also not what I'm here to do? Well, part of the deal is that if we're going to go through this work, you need to understand that you're going to have to go pass this on to the next person. If you're not willing to do that, then I am not going to waste my time giving you this beautiful gift. You with me? So that's boundary number 2. Let's go to page 95, guys, and we're going to go over boundary number 3. And again, you'll see the same theme basically repeated. But page 95, we'll go down about a quarter of the way. And it says this, that you will be most successful. You see that? We're going to read right there. You will be most successful with alcoholics if you do not exhibit any passion for crusade or reform, right? I can't be in your face telling you what you have to do and, oh, you better straighten up and fly right, mister. Don't you know that your wife is worried about you? And, that's not our responsibility to do all that, right? Listen to this. Never talk down to alcoholic from any moral or spiritual hilltop, right? I'm not here because I have some time that I'm somehow better than you. And I'm Captain AA because I got a big Roman numeral on my coin in my pocket. That's all crap. Here's what I'm supposed to do. Simply lay out the kit of spiritual tools for his inspection, right? It talks about it in this chapter, later on this page, that if the desire to seek God must come from within, I can't give you that. That's something that you have to bring to the table. And then I'm going to finish up the third boundary. Offer him friendship and fellowship. Tell him if he wants to get well, you will do anything to help. Wow, how that really puts the sponsor on the hook, doesn't it? That's me saying that I will be willing to do anything I can to help you. So this goes back to that belief that any sponsor that you can't get a hold of, you can't track down, he's not there for you. You've got the wrong sponsor. It's that simple. Because when I started to understand for myself that my very life depends upon you, me carrying the message. This is how I stay sober. This is how I stay in a state of being recovered, is I have to go out and carry the message. So I take this very, very seriously. This is life or death. And here's the boundary. This is what I want you to highlight. Boundary number 3. If he is not interested in your solution, right? Again, I can't give you something you do not want, nor am I even going to try. So that's the third boundary. And I'll say one more thing before we move on, and I'm watching the clock here, guys. we have this chip system in the rooms of AA today, and I'll tell you my opinion. I think they're an absolute liability. I think it causes more harm than it does good. Because what we're doing is we're teaching people that time equals recovery, and it doesn't. Time is and all it does is feed ego. I don't even acknowledge birthdays anymore. I haven't in years. But we have this thing called the desire chip, right? You all know what I'm talking about. And but the thing is that Alcoholics Anonymous doesn't offer the desire not to drink. That's something that you have to bring to the table. The only thing Alcoholics Anonymous offers is hope. You have to show up with the desire. You have to show up with the want. If you've got that, then we will offer you the hope. You can marry the two together, and that's what's going to get you through the 12 steps, is your desire and then the program. Let's move on to boundary number 4, guys. Top of page 96. And this one just really puts the nail in the coffin, if you ask me. There is no wiggle room here. There's just no two ways around it. And remember, the boundaries are for both parties. It's about this union of accountability. And I'll read on the top of page 96, the 4th boundary. Do not be discouraged if your prospect does not respond at once. Here it is. Search out another alcoholic and try again. You are sure to accept someone desperate enough to accept with eagerness what you offer. We find it a waste of time to keep chasing a man who cannot or will not work with you. And there it is. You are a waste of my time if you are not willing to go through with the 12 steps of the program. And it goes to the same way back onto the sponsor. If your sponsor is dragging his feet, always got something more important to do, something comes up, you've got the wrong sponsor. Because it says it right here that you need to we both need to be eager in this relationship, right? Because again, it's about two parties, 50% equals. At any time the relationship becomes 51% to 49%, we've got a problem with the relationship. The relationship is out of balance. So if one party is not eager and the other is, and it doesn't matter if it's a sponsor, then there's a conversation that needs to be had. I let my guys know right out of the gate, at any time our relationship starts to get off balance, we're going to have the conversation one time, and that's it. Because I'm not here to babysit you, right? I'm not here to talk you into doing the steps, right? I'm going to hold your hand and I'm going to love you, but you have to take the steps. And the same thing with the sponsor. So those are the 4 boundaries of sponsorship. And the easiest way to put it is all about accountability, guys. Are we holding each other accountable? Because it goes both ways. In order for you to recover, you need me. In order for me to recover, I need you. And when I start to truly understand the value of this, man, it just takes on a whole nother level. So now that we've gone through the book and set the ground rules, the boundaries for how this relationship is going to go, well, now we can move forward. Now we can say, okay, we're ready to go through this work. We're going to go through the 12 steps of the program. And so, but we have to get everything established beforehand and understand that, as always, that it's going to be 2 people coming together for a common problem and a common solution. Another thing that I add is that as much as we are a union and a 50-50 in this relationship, the sponsor is going to be the one calling the shots. The sponsee is never going to tell the sponsor how the step work is going to go. Right? There can only be one alpha in the relationship when it comes to taking the steps. So it's another thing we understand. The sponsee is not going to reinvent the steps because he doesn't feel like doing something. That's not what we're here to do either. Real quick, and guys, if you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please hit that red subscribe button. Share with some friends, hit that like, and comment if you have anything you want to talk to me about. And we'll talk about real quick. We'll get into the links, right? We hear all the time, or if you ever had this experience where, you go up to somebody and ask them to be your sponsor, and they say, oh, sure, but are you willing to go to any links? And of course, we all say yes, right? I did in the beginning, but I didn't. Do I really know what we're talking about, right? I think it's got something to do with those steps on the wall, but do I really understand what these links are about, and more importantly, where the links are? And again, as always, I'm going to allow the big book to be my voice today, guys. So we're going to start off on page 42. And we're going to get a look at these links, my friends. So on 42, we're going to go down to, it's almost towards about 3/4 of the way down. It says, but the program of action, you see that? But the program of action, though entirely sensible, is pretty drastic. And here's the links, my friends. It meant I would have to throw several lifelong conceptions out the window. The links, these are the links that I have to go to, and it tells me where they are. The links are in my mind. Right? The steps is how I go about achieving throwing these lifelong conceptions out the window. Right? So we see that the links are going to happen within me. Right? I have to completely change the way I view and think about life as I know it. And then we go to page 58, and we'll see another example of where the links are. And again, something that gets read in every meeting, and we have no idea that we're even reading it. Right? And I'll read, bottom of 58. We all have heard this. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnest at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. And here are the links right here. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Absolutely. What is outside the scope of that word? Nothing. So what they're telling me is that these links that I'm going to have to go to be successful in this, right? It talks about it in the doctor's opinion, about having a complete psychic change, an entire psychic change, right? Well, this is what we're talking about. It's all going to happen within my mind. The disease is in my mind. This is the disease, the part of the disease that's going to kill me is in my mind, right? So therefore, the treatment has to be within my mind, right? So the links that I have to go to are the conceptions. And I remember asking on and said, well, what lifelong conceptions do I have to throw out the window? And my sponsor said, everything. All of your lifelong conceptions, because they haven't served you well at all. Right? I'm one of those people that showed up at Alcoholics Anonymous with my life burned completely to the ground. I wasn't successful at anything, really. So I needed to be completely broke down and rebuilt back up. So guys, if you got any questions about the links, any questions about the boundaries, feel free to email me. It's recoveredalcoholic1939@gmail.com. As always, I want to offer my hand out there to men and women if you're looking for Big Book sponsorship. I'm going to be dropping in those meetings to attend, so we would love for you to join us. And I'm also now going to start introducing a line off the bottom of page 164 to close out an episode. And it says, may God bless and keep you till then. So what I'm saying to my friends out there today is may God bless and keep you till next time. So thank you so much for joining me in this episode. Be looking for another one very soon. And God bless. Take care.